Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the Great Tomb of Nezarec and what happened to its founders, the 9 original members of Ainz Ooal Gown, back when the group called itself Ainz Ooal Gown. And one member of this group might be still around, and I'm not talking about Ainz Ooal Gown himself. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. And as stated, this is only about the founders of Ainz Ooal Gown's original guild, Ainz Ooal Gown, which consists, as you probably have guessed, of a total of 9 members, and later became Ainz Ooal Gown after Lord Nishikian Rai discovered a certain dungeon. And we start with the champion and its former guild master, Touch Me. And he left the guild, and like many other members, it was due to real-life obligations that no longer allowed him the time to care for his video game avatar and the guild. Touch Me, like all members of Ainz Ooal Gown, was employed in real life, married to his childhood friend, led a loving marriage, and had become the father of a daughter. In other words, while Ainz saw the virtual world as his only social contact, Touch Me was blessed with a good social life. And there are also other clues as to why he left Ainz Ooal Gown. The player was apparently a police officer in real life, and relatively well off, which suggests a high salary and rank in the police force, and he allegedly learned a terrible secret from another member of the Nezarec Guild, Bell River, about one of the large corporations that actually dominated and ruled the world in the year 2138, and this information was so explosive and so dangerous that Bell River was eliminated in real life, but not before he could pass on this information to someone else, and I suspect that this person was none other than Touch Me, as the two knew each other through the guild, even though Bell River, unlike Touch Me, was not a founding member. In other words, the reason Touch Me left the guild, aside from his obligations as a father, husband, and because of his job, was probably that he had learned this dark secret, and as one of the few true upright people in this world, would pursue this matter no matter what. And what this secret was and what became of Touch Me, we simply do not know. But his personality is very upstanding and law-abiding and very good. In the world of Overlord, he would have a sense of justice of like 400 or 500, all on its own, just because of his personality. So this secret is probably in good hands. And what we do know is that Touch Me departure left a big gap in the guild. And with Touch Me gone, his greatest rival, who had been trying to defeat him in battle and surpass him since the days of Ainz Ooal Gown, warrior Takemi Kazushi, no longer had a rival, and therefore left. There was simply no longer a reason to sign in, to craft a new katana or sword specifically to finally defeat Touch Me, and it is really unsatisfying when such a friendly rivalry ends, and you no longer know why you should continue playing, just to defeat other players from the other guilds whom you can defeat anyway and have done so countless times, without any problems, any resistance? I think not. Takemi Kazushi simply lacked the challenge, the goal of finally defeating Touch Me in battle, which ultimately led him to leave the guild, but not before handing over his personal sword to his personal NPC, Cocytus, who would henceforth use it only against worthy opponents in the new world. And this sword was of course the god-slaying Emperor Blade. And next, we come to the guild master of the Great Tomb of Nezarec, who is of course Ainz Ooal Gown, or Momonga, as he was called back in the game. And at the end of the game, at the very moment of the server shutdown, he was transported from the game Yggdrasil 9 to a fantasy world as his avatar, and now lives on as an undead overlord of Nezarec, and due to a misunderstanding with Demiurge and the rest of the guild, he is now conquering the new world. However, he only wants his kingdom to be known for its peace and justice and prosperity. He has no interest in personal gaining control over the world, and really just wants to see his friends again. And next we have Lord Nishikian, the creator of Naber-al-Gamma, who was described as very calm and friendly, but at the same time loved a very fast high DPS gameplay style. He was stealth based and thanks to his high critical damage had the highest damage output of all of the players of Nezarec. However, his defense was also very low as a result, and while Lord Nishikian left Nezarec can only be speculated about, it is likely that his social life outside of the game required his attention more urgently. Because during the 12 years he played, Nishikian was probably in love, got married and had children. However, Nishikian also played other dive MMORPGs alongside Yggdrasil Online, namely Aberrage, a game where mechs fight each other, and even here he optimized everything for attack power and maximum damage output. For this reason, he even removed his radar just to make room for more firepower. The question then is whether Nishikian only withdrew from the game Yggdrasil Online, or if he completely quit dive MMORPGs and any gaming altogether. And personally, I would love it if he experienced the same isekai situation as Ainz, but in Aberrage, and ended up wandering around in the galaxy in a distant future as a Titan Principess, or something like that. But jokes aside, unfortunately, we do not know exactly what happened to him, only that he is no longer around. And like many other players, he did not respond to Ainz Ooal Gown's invitation to the meeting, once the server were about to shut down. Next in line we have a founding member of Ainz Ooal Gown who has not yet made an appearance, Vish III. He was also part of the group when Ainz Ooal Gown took over the Grey Tomb, and he also left the guild over time. Sadly, we do not know why, whether it was boredom, real-life commitments, or involvement in a secret that Bell River uncovered. We just simply don't know. And next up is Ancient One, and not much is known about him either, except that he apparently had a tendency to venture into the unknown and to explore it. He explicitly stated during the raid on the Grey Tomb, back when the guild under Touch Me cleared the future guild base of monsters, that the game was designed precisely for plunging into danger and mastering it. So it could be that Ancient One left the guild because he missed the thrill of the early days, and everything had become too much routine for him. Because again, Yggdrasil Online in its later days struggled with a decline in players, and was therefore provided with a variety of updates, which among other things introduced mech suits. But here too, we unfortunately do not know what happened to him or why he left the guild. And now we move on to the next, and he calls himself Flatfoot, an assassin and stealth-based player who was glad that Momonga became the new guildmaster, partially because he was afraid of Buku Buku Shagama. The Seiyu, the voice actress, was very good at changing her voice in an instant, often sounding very threatening, which she often used against Peru Ronchino, her younger sibling, and therefore Flatfoot was more afraid of her than of his superior of his entire office. But here too, we do not know what happened to him, but we can speculate that the workload that Hirohiro complained about when he briefly attended the guild meeting before the end of Yggdrasil Online also happened to him and simply robbed him of the time to do something special and productive. He probably just went home, scrolled through some feeds and front pages for let's say an hour or two because he simply lacked the energy and also increasingly the time for anything else, and then went to sleep. A sad fate indeed. And the last regular member of the 9 was Amano Mahitotsu, the blacksmith of the Great Tomb. He was, for a time, also a very good melee fighter, because Ainz Ooal Gown, as the name suggests, had very few members at the beginning, and he had to fight, so as not to be a burden to the group, before he respected his skills later on. Additionally, he was also the one who experimented, simply because he too played games like Aberrage, so mech games alongside Yggdrasil Online, with a modified version of the Armor of Reinforcement to fight and win in it. And the first time he fought against Peroncino, it was a disaster and a humiliation. He was easily defeated while in his armor. And I think the reason, besides family or professional obligations for him leaving the guild, was likely that he preferred the joy of smithing and crafting rather than just fighting. Thus, after several other members left, he didn't want to return his blacksmith-based character to a melee fighter again. So he likely simply left instead. But again, this is just my opinion based on the character and his action itself. So feel free to tell me if I missed anything. And with that, we have already explained 8 of the 9 players from Ainz Ooal Gown, the founders of Ainz Ooal Gown. The 9th member, however, is interesting because we know nothing about this member, except why it left the guild. Ainz Ooal Gown, that is. It was due to a heated argument with Touchme, the guild leader and commander at this time. The guild almost broke apart because of it, but Momonga, so basically Ainz, agreed to take over the leadership and became the new guild master, as he was a good listener, unbiased, and approached discussions and arguments without prejudice, and was genuinely caring about his friend's opinion, and not as ideologically and idealistically rigid as Touchme had been. And this unknown fate is particularly intriguing to me because for all the other guild members of Ainz Ooal Gown, we know that by the end of Yggdrasil Online and the moment the transport and transition from the video game to the fantasy world must have occurred, they were no longer in the game. Otherwise, they would have spawned at the round table of Ainz Ooal Gown, where Momonga would have been waiting for them. And yes, theoretically, since Momonga left the meeting room, there is a possibility that a guild member spawned there and went outside to look for Ainz, and then either came into the new world a few hundred years before or after Nezeric's arrival, if they still had a world item with them. However, the chance of any of this happening is very, very slim. First, the guy would need a world item to travel to the new world, and because the chance of players missing another is, again, slim, because they could simply have contacted Ainz through a message spell, and it is unlikely that they wouldn't find another in their own home base. But the member who left Ainz Ooal Gown years before the end could have quit Yggdrasil Online or joined another guild. And therefore, there's a chance that this last member, this lost member, was transported to the new world with Ainz. Maybe a few hundred years before, maybe it will come into 100 years or so, and meet Ainz Ooal Gown when basically the entire continent or world has been conquered already. And we already have some candidates, potential players who have made it to the new world who could be this lost 9th member of the founding era of Ainz Ooal Gown. First, we know that all members of the Great Tomb had to have a job. A criteria that applied to the 9th player as well, but which became completely irrelevant after he left the guild, if he joined up with another. Additionally, at the beginning of the game, one had to create a heteromorphic character in order to join Nezeric. It was a guild exclusively made for heteromorphs. And this is extremely important because these heteromorphic creatures do not have an aging process in the new world, meaning they do not age and die of old age. Instead, they just reach adulthood and then potentially live forever. Now, this alone does not guarantee eternal life, since lobsters can potentially also live for a very long time, but they are just too tasty to let them grow old. And this is why the new world is not overrun with heteromorphs. Also, the reproduction rate of heteromorphic creatures is likely lower than that of other species in the new world. But that's just a side note. In other words, any potential heteromorphic player that came way before Ainz, in like centuries before Ainz, could also be this lost friend of Ainz Ooal Gown and still be around. And, for example, Surshana, the undead overlord of the Theocracy of Slain, could theoretically be the ex-member that Ainz knows, since he is an undead overlord, a heteromorph like Ainz, and he may simply not have remained alone and could have joined another guild, the very guild that found it Slain in the end. In other words, the many parallels between Ainz Ooal Gown and Soshana could go so far that they knew each other back in the Yggdrasil Online game. And with his many word items and wish upon a star, Ainz might be able to bring Soshana back. And this would also be the only thing that could potentially save the theocracy of Slayn from his wrath. And next, we have the legend of a hero who soars through the air on his wings. And this has just become a legend that was very briefly mentioned in the meeting in the third novel, before a certain adventurer was offed and then became an elder lich. And if this hero that soared through the sky were an angel or a birdman like Pero Roncino, it is quite possible that he could also be the lost member of Ainz Ooal Gown. And we move on, and there's the person, the sleeper in a sunken city, that Platinum and Rigid Beskaru mentioned. And we know that Bell River is a so-called gibbering mouther, which means that a Cthulhu-based tentacle monster avatar would also not be far-fetched. And it would be interesting if a potential ally of the Platinum Dragon Lord turned out to be an ex-member of Ainz. And if the member knows that new players come to the new world every 100 years, it would also explain why this person sleeps. And this person would likely wake up every 100 years or so to check if Momonga and the rest of the people he know made it to the new world or not. And these are just simply 3 possibilities from different areas and parts of the new world, of which all could potentially have a connection to the Great Tomb. And finally, there's the question of whether Ainz and the new player could get along since the player left the guild after a dispute. And I think that it is very possible, because both would have someone with whom they could openly talk about their old lives. The player would be greeted with incredible wealth and luxury in Nezarec, which is also a factor if he's not an undead overlord like Ainz. And he also, and this is very important, had his falling out with Touch Me, not with Ainz. Moreover, the argument happened a long time ago, and the situation now is entirely different. And again, Ainz Ooal Gown has repeatedly been described as a good listener, which is what later made him the guildmaster. So there's every chance that the two could reconnect. And then they could rule the Great Tomb together. And Ainz would have what he has been searching for all of this time, a friend from his old glorious days, a confidant and a companion who knows him and understands him, and with whom he can truly be himself. And with that, we have reached the end of today's video. And now it's your turn. What do you think about this topic? Do you think there could still be a missing ex-member of Ainz Ooal Gown in the new world? And what do you think happened to the rest of the 40 players? Since again, this video is only about the 9 founding members. Let me know it down in the comment section. And while you type, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to all of my Patreons for supporting this channel, and special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 022 Ron, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Din Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch V. Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantom, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Kune Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, Diorg Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito 27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.